Hello everyone, and thank you very much for watching this excerpt of our Talking Local Interview series. I'm Miles Anderson, I'm the founder of BrightLocal.com. I'm very excited about today's interview. We're joined by Ann Smarty, who many of you will know well by reputation, or if you don't know Ann, you really should do. Ann is extremely well known within the search industry. She's a regular speaker at search and content events. She's a specialist community manager who runs her own blog. She works for the Internet Marketing Ninjas, and she's also the founder of the now notorious MyBlogGuest. Welcome to you, Ann, and how are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm doing great. I hope you do too.
That's great. Glad you're feeling well today, and thank you for joining us. Today, Ann and I are going to be talking about MyBlogGuest. Why, you might be asking yourself? Well, as many of you will be aware, Google has started to attack the tactic of guest blogging because it fears that many SEOs are misusing or abusing the approach and the tactic of providing content to appear on other sites for the purpose of gaining links, essentially blogging for links, or at its worst, blogging for paid links. And the reasons they consider this to be bad is that in the quest for links, the quality of the content is being sacrificed, and the intention of essentially writing and producing good content for the purpose of it being read by human readers is being essentially sacrificed in the quest for quick links in a fast and scalable way. Back in March of this year, Google actually slapped a manual penalty on MyBlogGuest, as it did on a number of other sites and services that were using the MyBlogGuest marketplace. For full disclosure, BrightLocal.com was one of those sites. We had used MyBlogGuest for about 15 months. We'd published a number of good quality and very positive and well-written articles through the service. We connected with a number of other content owners who wanted our content, and we thought we were working well within the boundaries that Google had said and had set, and we're doing something that was considered to be very positive. We also suffered a manual penalty, which I'm happy to say we are now out of it. But it puts an interesting question: like, what is the future of guest blogging? You know, Google has sent a pretty clear message to the industry that guest blogging for links and poor quality guest blogging will not be tolerated. But does this mean it's the death of guest blogging as a tactic for anyone to use? So Ann, before we get into the gritty detail of the kind of action that Google took, could you give us a little bit more background to MyBlogCast, why you started it, what inspired you, and kind of what it grew to become as it became a service that was well used?
I started in the industry about 7, maybe 8 years ago, and I tried to learn SEO by blogging about it. And I was blogging about everything that I found out, all the tactics, what worked for people. I became the member of Moz, SEO Moz at that time. And one thing I discovered is that many people liked my blog, and they started inviting me to guest post for them. And I was very excited and honored to blog for the huge names at that time. One of those was Search Engine Journal, and I was promoting those blog posts that I was publishing, and I saw the actual benefit of people having those excited guests on their blogs, because first of all, they make sure their article is great and they make sure to promote it, and that's the double benefit. And the platform that was publishing the blog post also gave a lot of exposure to those authors. That's how I became known in the industry in the first place. So that was my way to get known in SEO and social media industries, and many people knew me by my content. So that was an idea back then, that there should be a place that could connect those excited writers with the platforms for their mutual benefits. That was the first thought. Maybe back then it was a very old. That idea is very old, actually. In a couple of years, when I had some time, I decided to actually go ahead and start it. And I started the platform just as a forum where people could come and discuss their blogs and ideas, and the result would be perfect. In the perfect world, the result will be the guest post. Many people loved the idea, and many people didn't even know that such tactic of mutual benefit really existed. There was a strict rule from day one: there should be no money involved. So the only benefit, the only incentive for anyone to publish any blog post would be a good content. So you're placing a good content on your blog. So that was the only reason why would people want that blog post, and it seemed like an ideal world at that time. So our members started enjoying it and started proposing some features to make the whole process more scaled and easier. And we hired developers and started implementing those features. So that's how the whole feature set was grown by the whole community that was using it. So we were implementing the features they were asking for. That's the start.
So, okay, Anne, it's great to understand the kind of background of MyBlogGuest rather, and what inspired it. At its peak, how many customers did you have using the service? How many posts were essentially traded through it?
The peak of MyBlogGuest was when Matt Katz, a couple of years ago, he said that the guest blogging was a great tactic to gain links. We didn't ask him to do that. We existed long before he said that, but at some point in some interview he said that. So everyone rushed to guest posts, and we were even intimidated by the flood of crowd that started looking for guest blogging in Google and ultimately found our website. Many of them didn't understand the process easily. That was both the peak of the platform and also the start of all our problems with quality, because people heard that it's a great way to build links, so that's what I started doing. That's where we, at some point, like 200 of articles were published through MyBlogGuest. Can you imagine that volume? 200 of articles of free guest posts were published at that platform. So we had to hire the whole team of editors at that time who could at least keep an eye on what's going on. We did not implement the pre-approval process of those articles because we thought they are still free, so our publishers would be able to help us by rejecting lower quality articles. But our team was making their best to look through all the live articles in the gallery. So that was the peak, and that's when the team started growing as well.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. So essentially, the kind of gold rush around guest blogging was kind of sparked by Matt Cutts, with the irony that he then, stamped his foot on it essentially fairly recently. And he would probably argue that the intention was always initially positive around it, but that maybe it had been misused or even abused by SEOs, kind of looking for that kind of get quick link sort of fix approach. Is that right?
Yes, and the irony is that that's why I always say I wish those Google reps just never said anything, because whatever they say, it blows up, and it's hard to control, really. Many people just hear what they want to hear. Many people just don't understand exactly what Matt Katz said, and we had to deal with lots of misunderstood, very lost people who were just trying to place an article for the link. And ironically, many publishers were ready to publish that article, and we had to explain both sides why it's not good to publish just for the link. And of course, we were in the minority because many people were asking us, hey, people are happy to publish my article. Why would you prevent them from doing that, trying to enforce your editorial guidelines? And that's something that it's hard to argue with that. If that's free and if that person is happy to publish it, if that article has a demand, why would MyBlogGuest enforce those rules, editorial rules that we were trying to work on? So I had to publish an open letter to all our community at our blog explaining why those links might be risky in the long run and why we we care about our editorial policies. Not many people really understood that. Matt said it was okay. Publishers are happy to publish it. Why would MyBlogGuest even have those editorial rules of their own? So it was a tough fight.
Yeah, I can certainly see that, and I imagine it must be frustrating. We'll come on to maybe how you feel about it in a second. But when Google sort of started publishing or started making comments around the negative aspects of guest blogging, and its tone changed, and there were murmurs of them starting to clamp down on guest blogging. Did you ever think that it would come to affect your site, MyBlogGuest, to such a high degree?
Yes. I mean, it was logical. We were the hugest guest blogging brand. Even though we were trying to do that right, it was obvious that we were the top target, because I'm not sure Google even knows of any other guest blogging brands around there. So we were largest, and that's obvious we could be somehow affected. I didn't expect that scale at that time, probably. And sometimes I was even happy that Matt started talking about quote guest blogging and not using guest blogging for links, because I thought our users it would hear that as well. Unfortunately, like I said, many people just hear what they want, and not many of them. They heard Matt once said it was okay. All other warnings were beyond them. So I was happy to some point, but I could see the penalty coming, that's for sure.
Okay, and did you have any sort of official kind of prior warning from Google? And since the kind of penalty was slapped down on you, and also on kind of customers of yours, have you had any kind of conversations, meetings, direct communication with anyone at Google who was involved in the decision that they took?
No, never. No word from them.
Interesting. So they took obviously kind of very drastic action against your business that affected you enormously, and yet no one picked up the phone, no one sent you an email to kind of explain the action they took.
No, they didn't do that. And I think the problem with that is it would be hard to explain why they would hit MyBlogGuest. I cannot imagine that conversation with them, because we were doing our best to promote their own guidelines as well. So I'm not sure how they would even explain their intention to penalize us. I don't think they even have come up with any explanation, the actual rule, what we should have done differently. What I cannot see them even have that plan. If they could suggest us to changing anything, they would have probably asked us to do that if they had chosen any way to collaborate with the brand. But I don't see what they would recommend us doing differently, because we were trying to follow their rules already.
So you said that they targeted you obviously as the most kind of high-profile kind of guest blogging marketplace or platform out there. But you don't think they've maybe identified other ones. Is that because you had more of an open publishing basis in terms of you were very open about who was using the platform? You also had quite strict rules about no kind of paid links, and you had the platform policed. Do you think that maybe your open approach made you easier for them to target and to identify users of the service?
Yes, and that's something I also wrote in my public blog post on my personal blog, Ann Smarty. I wrote in public apology to my community for being too transparent, because we were making everything public. Because let's face it, when you start hiding something, you are breaking something. There is no immediate no approach other than that. We were believing that we were doing nothing wrong, so we could not have hidden anything. So we were publishing all our statistics, all our users were public as well. They could hide their blogs from their profiles if they wanted to, but the default was that everything was public and open, because otherwise, like I said, if you're trying to hide your traces, you're probably breaking something.
Okay, yeah, I think I appreciate that as well. I understand that you felt you were genuinely providing a service, which, by the way, we found was fantastic. We really enjoyed using the service, and we would still be using it today if this sort of situation hadn't arisen. With this sort of situation, do you think that the blame lies entirely at Google's door for what it perceived as the very heavy-handed action they took? Or do you believe some blame also lies with some SEOs who essentially use guest blogging as a way to get quick links? They sacrifice the quality of the content in doing this so that they can essentially put in as little effort as possible to get each individual link, because it's to some extent I suppose it's a quantity game. And do you think that's a bit of a symptom of SEO in general, where a new tactic comes along, it's got genuine quality and usefulness, but it finds a way to almost become corrupted because of that quest for quick opportunities, quick success, quick links, gain in rankings? So how much do you think how much the blame lies squarely at Google for being a heavy-handed sort of Goliath, and how much is it down to the SEO community who have maybe not understood the rules and have corrupted guest blogging? You have a moment to think about that if you like.
No, I have the answer. One thing that I want to make sure, I don't think any of our members is to blame. None of the responsibility is on the community itself. I blame myself and I blame Google, not any of our members who, however they try to use the community or the tools that were there. I built them. So I have my own, I think that's 50-50 responsibility between me and Google. And the responsibility comes from the same thing. We allowed the lower quality tactics to work within our platforms. And however we try to enforce or recommend or best practices for guest blogging, we still, with our tools, we made it easier. And where the opportunity for lower tactics exists, there is a demand. So our members were just the users of the tools that we built. So we did a poor job of building those tools the way that it could represent the higher quality guest blogging. Our community were just the users. They are not to blame, that's for sure. And that's the same with Google. Until they stop lower quality tactics working, there is no way they can prevent them from existing. And all those measures they are taking, like manual penalties, disavows, no follows, none of them fixes the problem. Low quality tactics still work, so they will exist no matter what. People will adjust to implementing them. They will create short-term websites that are ready to get penalized, but they will still spoil the search quality. So that's absolutely the same problem they have. They need to fix the algorithm, not to go for all those semi-measures. And that's our blame too. That's exactly what we did. We allowed the lower quality tactics to exist.
Well, I think that's very noble of you to accept the blame, because as with many things, you provide a service and someone finds a way to misuse it. And the people who were using it, who were skilled adults. I think I would, if that was me in your shoes, I'd probably say the blame lies a little bit more with them. But I think it's very noble of you to accept that. So, looking to the future, then, what do you think the future is for guest blogging? As a channel, as an outreach opportunity for businesses to get their name, their content distributed more widely. And what would the key pieces of advice would you give to kind of marketeers about content distribution in the future?
Ironically, the future of guest blogging is in their past. I would say that's pre-MyBlogGuest era when it was harder, it was non-scalable, it was all based on your email outreach and relationships that you had with bloggers. So that's the future. We just had a little bit of spike of it being more scaled than it could be. That was the reason of its downgrade and low quality that managed to survive. But now I think that, to me personally, nothing has changed in terms of how I guest blog, and that's how I'm going to do that as well. Just keeping columns, guest blogging columns on a few high-profile blogs in my industry where I can contribute monthly, and how more and more people find out about me and what I'm doing and what my expertise is. And probably I never search for more opportunities because I get regular invites to guest posts for people that know me. So I usually reply yes to any that I receive. And that's how I also expand my reach. I get invited to guest post and I guest post for those people. And that's another element of the future of it, because with authorship and Google authorship and understanding the power of niche influencers, people's brands start inviting authors to guest post for them to contribute something, some of their expertise. That's how the power and the trustworthiness of any brand grows. So I see more and more influencers invited to guest post for huge publications and brands. I guess that's the future in its past, basically.
So then, if I was to sort of sit down then and essentially craft what my objectives would be for, say, a guest blogging program, I might put, brand awareness, or awareness of me as an individual, some social PR as two of the kind of key tactics. Engagement, and then links might be an incidental benefit that would hang off that. But if I'm looking mainly to kind of broaden my reach of my audience in a positive way to create more sort of social interaction, and then links come as a byproduct of that, if I'm looking at it through that sort of filter or those objectives, then essentially guest blogging is being done for the right reasons. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly, and that's how I did my very first blog post. When I didn't guest post, when I didn't even know what it was, I was so much honored to be invited. I even never added my byline to a guest post. I just sent it as it was, and the publisher of it, the owner of the blog, would write a few words about myself in the introduction or in the bottom of the blog post, saying who I am and what I do from what they knew. So I never cared about links when I guest posted, and that's how it started, and that's how it will continue, hopefully.
Great, thank you. It's a very good answer. So last question then. What's next for you? What's next for MyBlogGuest? So what's next for you, and what's next for MyBlogGuest?
We've been working on the rebrand for a little bit more than 7 months now. We will not rebrand now. We will just launch a new project that was initially planned as MyBlogGuest, where all those mistakes will be part of how we develop it. There will be no... MyBlogGuest is essentially much more than just guest posting. We grew out of that long ago. We had a great educational value, connecting value, and we have much more than just guest posting. So we'll take the best of it, and we'll launch a new community, and we'll invite everyone. And it will be it will have a huge focus on community aspect, where people with new blogs or with established blogs will just come to find like-minded people to help each other via interviews, providing each other with linkable assets, or content marketing assets that they have, and help each other with brainstorming some great article ideas. So that will be both educational value with tools.
Okay, that's great to know. That's great to know that my blog guest will live on, will have improved, and hopefully someday, it'll be a much bigger entity than it is now. Given this experience, we can only learn and move forward. So, Anne, thank you very much for giving up your time today. Thank you also for explaining the situation with my blog guest, and best of luck in the future. Do you have any sort of parting comments that you would like to give to those watching today?
Thank you so much for having me, and I cannot express in words how much I'm thankful for all the support from our SEO community that we received throughout these months after we were penalized. Thank you so much for that. I would never expect so much support for the penalized side. And like I said in a few tweets, we will make the history of the most supported penalized site in search industry. We've already made the history. So thank you so much for that.
Great, and thank you very much for your time today. Everyone, thank you for watching this installment of Talking Local. We've got some other interviews coming up over the next few weeks and months, so please do look out for those. And have a great day wherever you are. Thank you very much.